Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How you doing? This is Renee.
Hey, this is Fred here. How
Nice
you
to
doing?
meet you. I'm doing fantastic. How's it going over there in Sweden?
Yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good. It's winter and COVID and everything. But
Yeah,
besides that, it's going pretty all right, I would say.
yeah, yeah. Well, especially
Where are you
here.
based?
I'm in Texas,
Ah, okay, nice, cool.
so it doesn't get as cold as Sweden, but we have the exact opposite, which is like burning hell hot. Triple degree,
Yeah.
triple digits. Well, anyway,
Yeah, I can
thanks for joining me
imagine.
today. You play drums in the band Mass Worship, which of course you have a new album due out in a couple weeks now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Pretty,
titled Portal Tombs. Is there a specific reason that y'all decided to go with that title?
yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole album is about essentially the search for meaning in a seemingly meaningless existence, more or less. It's kind of like a depressing theme throughout the whole record. But um, I'm kind of like a firm believer in zooming out in life, kind of trying to see life from a different perspective and a bigger perspective most of the time. Um, just to go against whatever it is that I'm facing in life from a different angle, so to speak. And Portal Tombs kind of pertains to that in the sense that it just means that you're killing a part of another dimension, another perspective that you used to have, and now you're watching life from a different perspective. It's and I'm going into that in depth throughout the record. So it's about facing your fears, facing death, and facing life in a way where you end life the way you see it today, and you start seeing it in a different way. And that's kind of what Portal Tombs is about.
Yeah. Now, I mean, this kind of almost has like I don't know if it was an influence of what we're going through right now, the pandemic, but I mean, it sounds like it has some deep meaning to where, I mean, right now, you're right. I mean, we're all dealing, whether if it's death physically or mentally, and then hopefully coming out of the other end as something new or different.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is something that is kind of tied to how I see the world, and something that is very like that I think a lot about even prior to COVID and everything. But COVID kind of made it for me a bit more obvious that okay, maybe I'm not the crazy one here. Maybe people are feeling or can relate to this view that I have of the world and the way I approach this. And I mean, COVID is another way of dealing with it as well, because it's like it's kind of death of life as we knew it, and now a new perspective begins, a new dimension of world and of the world, and we need to adapt to this new reality in a way. And my way of doing that is just zoom out and try to see it from a bigger perspective, and not focus so much on the details, but focus more on like a longer time horizon, so to speak. So that kind of relates both to a personal view of life, but also as a societal view as well. Like if we just zoom out a bit and try to see it from a bigger perspective, maybe we can make some better progress.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that would be a great lesson for everybody to kind of take, with them, knowing that it's not just us and an individual suffering this way, but the whole world to where, I mean, we should be able to join together and be able to, hopefully overcome or at least come out better after this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's also very important that people start thinking in terms of it's not just me, but I mean, society as a whole is multi-generational. It like the
Right.
time span of humanity is so much bigger than my life in particular, and those are the kind of dimension perspectives that I'm very interested in digging into and try to paint a picture of in some way.
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting that you say that how, that it's generational because sometimes people don't realize some of the decisions that we make or the choices and the actions that we do, it's infinite. They have infinite
Exactly.
repercussions, it just goes on. If we make a certain choice, it's going to affect either myself, my family, my friends, and society forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also so complicated because it branches out as well. Like one very innocent decision today might mean something totally different in 10 years from now, 100 years from now. We don't know that. And it has
Yeah.
unforeseen consequences. It's very, like, it's a very complex world we live in.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that also gave you like a lot of content to be able to work with when you were writing this album, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's again, like this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, like even prior to COVID, but it's kind of like making it more obvious, when you go through something like this, like when the whole world just pauses, suddenly.
Yeah.
It's never happened before in my life, not in my parents' life as well. And it's a really odd situation. So it just kind of highlights that in a more obvious way, to me at least.
Yeah. Now, when you were writing this album, I know some bands, and I don't know if for Mass Worship, but I know some bands had written an album like a year ago, like even back to 2019, and now they're finally able to release that. Is that something for
Yeah.
this album as well?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, I mean, we started shortly after we released the debut album that we had on Central Media. Shortly after that, we started writing on the second album, and since then, we've just basically been looking for a good opportunity to release it because we're a fairly small band, fairly new band, and it's extremely important for us to have shows, tours in line with the releases, of course. But that hasn't been possible now. So
Right.
we've just been waiting for the right opportunity, for the door to kind of open. And yeah, it's been a hell of a wait, and it's really hard because when you write new music and it feels fresh and progressive, you feel like you're moving forward. You have a forward momentum. You kind of identify with a new image of your band. Like we have these new songs. This is what we internally in the band associate Mass Worship with, but we can't show it to the rest of the world, and it's really frustrating. It's a really
Right.
frustrating situation to be in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even though this is your second album, the sound of it, I mean, from the production and the musicianship, it sounds like, very polished, like you've taken your time to be able to create this. Which, I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, COVID has given you time to work on it a little bit more too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But it's also kind of like a deliberate. The first record is definitely more hardcore infused in a way, hardcore punk infused, I would say. And this record, we're definitely moving more into like a progressive metal. There's some clear melodies in it. There's some clear progressive parts of it, more modern in a way, and definitely more polished as well. But we really like to approach music in a way where it's like a handcrafted thing, like you build it from scratch and you want it to be kind of quirky, and like you want it to sound like a unique thing, and you want
Yeah.
people to really buy a unique product. And I mean, if COVID didn't happen, we probably wouldn't have had the time to spend on building our house, so to speak, this album. Uh, we wouldn't have the luxury of spending as much time, at least. Because nowadays, productions are really on a production line, more or less. Like you record it, mix it, and it needs to go out fairly quickly. And, you can't really pay much attention to it. And so
Yeah.
that's definitely an upside of the whole pandemic situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've listened to it a few times myself, and from what I've listened to, you don't have that second album slump like other bands have. Unfortunately, had they have like you have a band just like come out with their first album, yes, this is amazing, and then the second album is not as good. That's not the issue here. I mean, the album sounds very mature, and it sounds, even though you have some similarities in some genres, it sounds very unique in your sound. It sounds very live and visceral. Is that something that y'all brought in with the recording?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a part of this band is really that we're into stuff that is hard to define, like whether that be emotional content of the music or lyrical content. We want it to be open and wide, but it's also, again, it's part, like it's a bit of an extension of my mind, and I'm just trying to communicate what I see and what I feel from the inside out, and I don't really care that much about fitting in specific genres. I've noticed that it's very hard for people categorize it properly. Like some say death metal, some say modern metal, some people, name drop Meshuggah, other people name drop some totally completely different bands, and we really like that. Like we want it to be unique, because we're just trying to express ourselves, and that's really about it. Like we're not trying to be another clone of another band, and and that goes into the sound and the production as well. Of course, some people are going to be scared as fuck and be like, this sounds like shit, or this doesn't sound like this band that I love. But that's a price worth paying if you're trying to just have integrity and be true to yourself in your expression, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's got to be one of the hardest things for a band is to stand out and be a little bit different, be an individual instead of, you're right, like being a clone. It's like, oh, this band sounds exactly like the other one. So it's like it's good to have a refreshing change, that trying to do something different, standing out, having your own voice in a sense, which is very
Yeah, yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah, to me, that's the whole goal of doing creative stuff, is to, be your unique voice and try to express yourself. And I mean, music and creativity in general, it's like any other language. Like you need to learn it, and especially when you start a new band, it's going to take some time to find out the proper vocabulary for that band, so to speak. And that's really what we're doing. We're on that journey, and that's also why I think there's a logical progression to the band. Like we know that we want to do stuff differently, and we're open to expand in every single way. And it's really refreshing to play in a band that approaches music in that way.
Heck yeah. Now, when y'all write, does the band kind of write together as in putting the musical ideas together, or does one person kind of come in with a song structure and share that as like, this is what I have right now, let's add on to that?
Yeah, it's primarily me writing all of the stuff, and then we kind of bounce ideas, and the rest of the guys come in with some ideas, like maybe we can try this, maybe we can get a solo here, and we just bounce it around. And then really it's just about shooting down ideas. Like, okay, this sounds cool, but let's not do that. Let's do this
Yeah.
instead, because that's more in the focus. And it's a lot. I mean, we all live in different places as well, so it's all happening a lot through the internet, of course. So it's a lot of chatting about, okay, what should we do with this song? Should we continue with it, or should we just scrap it? And yeah, it's a lot of killing your darlings, and just trying to find the focus, the focus for the band, and what we feel is exciting to us, where we want to progress, and what elements we want to add. Like with this record, we wanted to add a lot of melodies, and we wanted to be more progressive, and that's what we did. And that's a collective decision, even though I am the one writing the stuff. So
Yeah. Now, when it came down to actually recording it, was there happened to be delays? Because I know a lot of places were still on lockdown. Some are even started lockdown again. Did you have that problem when you were actually come down to recording these?
no, not really. Sweden has been pretty okay when it comes to lockdowns and stuff. Like we didn't have any hard lockdown.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Hey man, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I guess I had an issue on my side on the internet. Something went out, but now I'm on
uh,
my hotspot there.
okay, cool, no worries. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that.
regarding the lockdown and everything, Sweden was pretty okay during the pandemic, so we didn't really have a hard lockdown at all here. So
Hmm.
things have been pretty smooth with everything.
Yeah, well, that's good. Even right now with the new stuff happening, because I know, and even in Europe, but there's a lot of bands that happen to start canceling some of their tours because of things locking down. So far, Sweden has not gone that route.
Yeah, I mean they started getting harder now. It was since a month back, right before Christmas.
Oh yeah.
That was when things started going south again. But yeah, I mean, besides this period for the last month, it's been very chill. Everything they have recommendations generally asking people to do things, and the Swedish population is very, like, they trust the government a lot, and most people listen to the recommendations. So there doesn't like there hasn't been a real need for it. So fortunately, recording and everything has been fairly smooth. Everything.
Well, that's good. That's very good. Now, when it comes down to, writing the music itself, do you normally come in with maybe, I mean, you were talking about the idea this you had for the album. Is that what influenced on how you write your music, or do you start writing music and then you formulate your ideas and lyrics around that?
Yeah, it's usually that way around. Letter. That I mean, and I kind of do it that way because I sincerely believe that music has to be an extension of one's mind. It needs to be fluid, like it needs to come out the way it does without, the obstacle of like normal language. Like if I would start defining stuff in terms of themes and stuff like that, even before writing, I think it would influence and filter what comes out. So I'd much rather do it the other way around and kind of have it fluid and do whatever the fuck I want to, and then try to connect to the original emotion again, and write depending on what it is that I'm feeling, and just enhance the language of music through lyrics and music and visual stuff and all of that.
Yeah. So I know, whatever there's information from Mass Worship, it says you're primarily, the drummer, but you're also writing the guitar parts, and also do you also main writer for the lyrics as well?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Very
just
cool.
yeah, that's just how it turned out, and I think it's just the quickest link to my head, and I have a clear vision of what I want to do, and instead of having like a democracy and voting on what we're gonna do, that's just how we ended up
Yeah.
doing it. It's just
Yeah.
I'm just a nerd, I like sitting, playing guitar, writing stuff, and this is what I love to do, and yeah, and that's what we kind of formed the band around.
Yeah. And that's also very interesting. And I guess it makes it easier for you because, with the creative or what you have in mind when you're writing the guitar parts, you already have in mind what you're going to be doing for the drums on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and there's like nothing stopping me from doing it. But the thing is also that I always spent my life learning stuff. Like I love doing it and digging into stuff, and that's why if I wanted a guitar part, I learned how to play the guitar. If I wanted drums, I learned how to play the drums. And same thing comes to production as well, mixing, recording, all of that stuff. I just learned how to do it and started doing it, and that's where we are today. And it is like I'm doing it because it's the quickest link. There's no debate. It's just from here straight to the artboard, and you start doing stuff. And I like that
Yeah.
idea of it. It feels like it's more unfiltered in a way, more honest.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now you mentioned that when you're writing that to where you with this album you tried to do a little bit more melodies and almost a little bit more progressive sound. For the drumming itself, did you try to do anything differently, or did you primarily kind of keep it the same you were compared to the previous album?
No, it's definitely different. I mean, on the previous album too, we had a different drummer in the band, and I was playing guitar in the band, and that kind of stuff is like adding some sort of barriers, and you need to kind of, okay, this is the type of drummer we have now, and he's a great drummer, but he's more into punk. So I kind of had
Hmm.
to adjust what it is we're doing to a punk drummer essentially. And now that we're
Yeah.
we're writing for me to play the drums, it's more okay, I know what I can do, so I'm going to write it according to my skills on the drums essentially. So and that goes for guitar and bass and vocals and everything. We just try to adjust it somehow to the army of musicians we have in the band, so to speak, if
Yeah.
that makes any
And that's
sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. And one thing that I always find fascinating is how, you know, uh, speaking of the drums, because you're playing the drums on this album, is how it's changed over time. It's not the simple 4/4 beat. Like if you not to say if there's anything wrong with AC/DC. AC/DC is amazing
Oh, I
guitar
love
band,
it. I love
obviously,
it. Yeah, yeah.
right? But the drummers now are able to express themselves completely different than back then, and are able to show their musicianship and be very creative in what they're doing. I think that's just fascinating to me and how they're able to evolve that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think in this band also, it's like I'm not a super skilled guitar player at all, but I know how to arrange songs and how to write themes that resonate with me emotionally. That's what I love to do, and that's what I think I'm fairly good at. But on the drum side, I'm a bit more technical, and there I can actually do stuff. So I think that puts kind of like a tone on this band in a way that other bands maybe don't have it, because usually it seems to be very guitar and riff focused, and here the
Yeah.
drums and the bass are more in the center in a way. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's because I'm a drummer and I love drums, and that's it, just gravitates towards that automatically.
Yeah. Now, how long have, just to get to know you a little bit, how long have you been playing drums yourself?
I started when I was 13, playing in general everything, essentially playing punk and all of that stuff.
Yeah. So for who were growing up that made you want to become a musician? Who were some of the main influences for you?
It's so like vastly different. I mean, my brother is a drummer too, so he of course influenced me a lot. Like he had a drum kit at home that I could try playing on, learning on. So even though I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to do it, I just did it anyways. But besides that, it was a lot of punk. Like I am probably the only one in the band that really loves American punk rock, like Bad Religion, that kind of stuff. That was
Hmm.
really when I got into music heavily,
Yeah.
because that kind of punk has a bit of a pristine sound that real punk doesn't have. Like if you listen to crust punk and stuff, it's like very aggressive. But with Bad Religion and stuff like that, what I really liked about it is the complexities and the melodies, and it was actually really good musicians playing in it. So that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that I really liked.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, but even being from Sweden yourself, I mean, there's so many musical influences there too.
Yeah,
Some amazing bands that have come out of there. It's like, I mean, to where y'all have, the lingo of Gothenburg, Sweden, and all the In Flames and Soilwork. And I mean, so many amazing bands. It's hard to not say like, oh yes, I'm not going to listen to them.
yeah, of course. And I mean that's the thing, because I mean I think a lot of people start in punk when they start playing because it's simple to do. But
Right.
if
Yeah.
you're actually interested in music, you're gonna go into metal eventually, because that's where you can do the real stuff. And I think that's a very logical path a lot of Swedes have as well. They start with something nasty and like crust punk or punk or something like that, and then they start drifting into these other bands. At the Gate started the same way. They were like
Yeah.
playing crust and all that stuff, and then they shifted more into death metal and building all of that stuff. So I think it's a very natural thing. But yeah, of course, we have so many good bands in Sweden. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of jealous.
I mean, America has pretty good bands too. So.
Oh
But
yeah,
we're
they do.
yeah, but we're
Yeah,
we're
this
also lucky enough to have. Speaking of At the Gates, we have Jonas, the guitar player of At the Gates. He's playing a solo on the record. The singer of
oh awesome.
Catatonia is singing some parts on the record. So I mean, we're just very lucky. Some of the guys are good friends with them, and yeah, I mean, it's also a small country and kind of like a tight community. So
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I saw that, and forgive me, but I didn't see if you actually did, but you had some shows late last year. What did those go through? You were able to play those shows?
yeah, we did. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a couple of them. I can't even remember what shows it was now. It feels like it's ages ago. Uh,
right.
but we did a couple of shows here and there that happened in Sweden, of course, and we also were lucky the year before. What was that? 2020. We toured with Vader from Poland.
Oh,
We did
awesome.
a European tour. There was kind of like an opening in the whole pandemic in August in Europe. So we got the offer to tour with them. So we just, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
Oh,
And then
yeah,
we
of
were just
course.
every show on the tour, everyone was like scared of catching COVID or that the shows would get canceled. But fortunately, we played I think 10 or 11 shows. Only one we had to skip, which was in Austria because they didn't allow Swedes to enter apparently. So but yeah, we've been lucky enough to play a couple of shows here and there, like to keep it up. But it's definitely hard for bands right now.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's hard across the board. I mean, even though I'm buying tickets to shows that are happening, I just keep seeing it's like, okay, postponed to 23 or it's canceled or whatever. But everybody's doing their part, trying to make it to live music, and of course bands are doing their part, going above and beyond. I mean, and that's something that some people don't see on the other side is everything that a band goes through to try to make a tour happen.
Yeah.
It's like show up and play. Why are you not here?
Yeah, but it's always like that. Like it's hard for people to see the work that goes into it, and it's kind of the same, when you work on an album for 2 years, you upload something, and then you see some asshole on YouTube just writing, this sounds like shit, and it's like, yeah, yeah, okay, it does, but fucking don't listen to it then.
Yeah.
But it's the same with
You're right.
touring too.
Yeah. Why even throw those comments there? So like if you don't like it, just move on to the next thing. I mean,
Yeah, it's just internet. Humanity on the web is like not a good combination, right? But yeah,
no.
touring is the same. Like it's so much work, and yeah, I feel a lot like it's so bad for a lot of people working in the industry. Fortunately, I have work outside the industry, so I don't have to depend on music. But for the
Yeah.
people that do, it's hell right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And then talking about how crazy people can be is they'll complain. It's like they're not visiting their town to come see the
Yeah,
band
yeah,
play. But it's like, do you not realize they traveled from the other side of the world to come here?
yeah.
You can't
And
drive a
even
couple hours?
Yeah, and even now they do it, during a pandemic. Like a tour is
Yeah.
finally happening, and some asshole can still complain about them not coming to their shithole. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't do those comments, but if a band that I want to see comes close, remotely close, I mean, I've driven 6 7 hours total, back and forth to go see them because I know they've made the effort to get here, so I'm gonna go out there and show my support.
That's the right way. That's the right way to do it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now, and I don't know if this is too early to talk about. If you can't say anything, is there any plans of possible tourings that you may be able to talk about or not yet?
I mean, we have one tour that is booked as the release tour together with a Stockholm death metal band called Leak, uh, and that's supposed to happen in March. It's looking a bit wobbly right now. I'm not really sure it's going to happen because everything is getting canceled in March right now in Europe. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
We have our fingers crossed, and we'll hope for the best. But the worst part is that when you're touring with some of these medium-sized bands like Leak, the band that we're going to tour with, they play in other bands that are much bigger than Leak, and when they need to postpone something, they need to postpone it a year or something like that. So that's the shitty part right now. Like it's everything just get pushed so far into the future that you just like you're almost losing hope. But yeah, we're gonna hope for the best and see what happens.
yeah, yeah. And like said yourself, luckily for yourself, touring is not your main income, which that's almost the route that a lot of people have to take now, especially right now, is not making touring their main income, unless you just happen to have been blessed to you're already part of a big band, like you mentioned. It's like you can survive and you can make it through, but off of whether sales or internet stuff and all that. But for the smaller bands, the up and coming bands, it's almost nearly impossible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't make a living of it. Like it's totally impossible. So yeah, I think that's the route a lot of people have to take now. And it's also you need to change the way you do things. Like we really need to get better at being good in social media and push our stuff much more there and be more digital, do stuff like that. And it takes some time to get adjusted to that, for sure. Like
Yeah,
when we started this band, the idea was just to write music and tour relentlessly. That's what we've been doing previously in previous bands. That's what we're good at. It's just touring like
yeah,
insane amounts. But now we can't do that. So we need to change the tactic and be a bit more digital in everything we do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The times have changed, and we just have to change with them. Otherwise, we get left behind.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, of course, you have Portal Tombs coming out February 4th. We were briefly talked about, going out to shows for fans that are, maybe new to mass worship. What could they do to kind of help support the band right now?
Pre-order the new record. That's like the biggest one, of course. Yeah, just follow us and make sure you follow everything that is happening on social media. We try to post as much and keep as many people updated as possible with everything that is happening. But I mean, we're at the hopefully we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we have some really cool stuff in the works. Because yeah, I mean, you can still connect to a lot of people on the internet, like booking agencies and stuff like that. So we have a lot of cool stuff happening. When it's time for shows again, we're definitely ready. So people can look forward to that.
Yeah, heck yeah. Now, speaking about social stuff, I know some bands have done it. I don't know if you're going to do it yourself. Is there going to be any playthroughs of any of the songs that you have coming out?
Yeah, we're kind of booking all of that stuff now, trying to get a couple of them in, both for guitar and for drums. So it's in the works. It's going to come now during the spring for sure. And I think we're going to do some more like gear related stuff as well, and some more interview stuff where we talk more in depth about the processes and about the record in general and stuff like that. So there's going to be content for sure. That's like the
Yeah.
backup plan for every band now. I think when tours starts, not happening.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you gotta have content because I've heard it numerous times from other bands. It's like if you're not in people's faces constantly putting something out, they're gonna forget about you,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, and it sucks. I mean, I fucking hate social media for everything it is, but
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
but you need to, participate in it. It's just how it is, and people have an attention span of 10-second TikTok video nowadays, and you need to compete with that. Unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Yeah. I'm with you. I hate social media. If it wasn't for this to be able to talk to interview bands and do
Yeah,
this stuff, I wouldn't have it.
yeah. No, I get it totally. The connection part is amazing, of
Oh
course.
yes,
It's just
yes.
the whole, yeah. There's some other aspects of it that is not worthy anything.
No, not at all. So, you had talked about the pre-orders. On those pre-orders, is there any chance of possibilities of, say, um, having, signed albums or artwork, anything like that, that may be able to put a package together that way?
Yeah, we might do something like that. Probably not for the pre-order, but once the record is out, I think we're going to create some packages like that, and also create some competitions where we yeah, where that can be the win for people, like a signed copy of the album for sure. Some stuff like
Yeah,
that is going to happen. There are some bundles already with like hoodies and long sleeves and stuff like that. I think we have two shops in Europe. Our official one is Trust No One Recordings. That's based in Scandinavia, and then we're also working with Impericon in Germany and across Europe. And I think Central Media Distribution is in charge of everything that is happening on the US market. So,
yeah.
but all of them have different bundles that should be available now.
Very cool, very cool. Well, Fred, I've enjoyed our talk. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover, promote before we finish up today?
No, I think that's all. Sounds good. Thank you so much for taking your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course, man. And thanks for your time too, as well. I hope it doesn't, completely get frozen to death over there in Sweden.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hope you're able to tour once that tour comes around in March for you. I mean, that'd be great for fans to be able to get out there and see y'all play live for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so too. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'll try to promote the stuff on my side, on my end. Again, I wish you the best on February 4th when Portal Tombs comes out. I'm enjoying the album. If if anybody likes new progressive stuff that's individual and being different, this is definitely something to pick up.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Awesome, man.
Of course. All right. Well, you have a great rest of the day and you take care out there, okay?
Yeah, likewise. Talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.